Let me talk to you a moment about how you would structure the essay for option 1 with this prompt. Find a current cause that matters to you. Give your position on that cause, why it matters, and what should be done about it. Quote outside sources as evidence of the current conversation about the cause. What is said by those who agree with what you think should be done about the cause? What is said by those who disagree with what you think should be done about the cause? You can use the website procon.org to get some quotable sources for this part. Then choose 3 people from the following categories from the readings assigned for this class. So any of these 3 listed here. Give their stances on your proposed cause and what they would say matters about the cause and what should be done about it. Use quotations from the textbook, so from the assigned readings for each of the 3 people, as evidence for what you are saying they would do in support of or disagreement with your cause. So we're going to be pairing these sources. We're going to call primary sources because they're the sources assigned for this class. We're going to pair those with modern day sources that have something to say about a certain cause. So I have written for you an example. Let me see if I can get to it. Here is a sample of how I would do the introduction. Any introduction is going to start with sort of the broad idea. That's the hook. You want to introduce the topic in a general enough way that anyone would feel like they could understand it. So you don't want to start with going right into your early American writers because that's not general enough to draw in any reader who may not have read all of the sources that you're going to be talking about. So you're going to draw them in by just giving a general statement in this situation about the problem that you are going to be addressing. So a current problem in the United States. And then you're going to briefly mention the authors that have something relevant to contribute to solving the problem. So by that I mean the early American writers you've chosen from those categories that you had before. And then your thesis statement comes at the end of the introduction. Okay, so some general statement about how these 3 early American authors' ideas are still relevant today. Okay, and I have given you an example of actual sentences I might write for that so that you can see how the introduction is structured. So the current problem I have chosen is conspicuous consumption. I have chosen this topic because I don't think anybody else has chosen that topic yet, nobody that I have spoken with. So I want you to do your own writing. I don't want you to just copy what I have here. So choose a cause that you see as a problem in America today. Conspicuous consumption in the United States creates many problems. So there's one sentence. Clearly I have more than one sentence for that first section of the introduction. I encourage you to write as many sentences as you need within reason. So your paragraphs can go as long as 3/4 of a page. So if you need that much to introduce your topic, that's fine. For college level essays, it's not unusual to have only 1 or 2 paragraph breaks. More than 2 paragraph breaks on a page probably means you're not writing enough and you need to think deeply about what more you can say. So I'll continue with that first part of the introduction. I give some examples of conspicuous consumption and the problems it creates. For example, conspicuous consumption as depicted in the news, in entertainment media, and in social media creates a sense of divisiveness between the haves and the have-nots. Another problem with conspicuous consumption is that it shows a lack of responsibility for non-renewable resources. All right, and then you're going to briefly mention the authors that have something relevant to contribute to solving the problem. Okay, so looking at my first sentences, I will come back to why I have chosen to address the two problems I see with conspicuous consumption, because I needed those two for being relevant to some early American writers. So the green part is where you're going to introduce the authors that have something relevant to contribute to solving the problem. I expect this to take a full 3 sentences, maybe more, but you don't need to give every detail about the 3 early American writers, because you need to save those details for the body paragraphs that will be about how each early American writer addresses a specific issue that you have found written about in a current context. People in the United States are fond of invoking the names of the founders to justify certain causes. So that's a very general kind of bridge between what's the problem and then another sentence that continues to bridge into the here are the 3 writers from early American literature continues here. However, the writings of many of the founders of the United States demonstrate the destructive nature of conspicuous consumption. For example, Anne Bradstreet is a poet who writes of her ability to praise God for reminding her that materialism is not her goal as a Christian. Likewise, and please use transition words or phrases or sentences when you are shifting from one writer to the next, or one problem to the next, or one aspect of a problem to the next. Transitions really elevate your writing to a level that fits with college level writing. Likewise, John Winthrop was a colonizer whose a model of Christian charity reminds readers to share their worldly goods, while philosopher Henry David Thoreau, shuns ideas of materialism and recounts the benefits of doing so in Walden. So here's an example of how really difficult it is to stay in literary present tense, but it can be done. So I say Anne Bradstreet is a poet. John Winthrop is a colonizer. And Henry David Thoreau shuns, and I should spell that correctly. There you go. So when you see little squigglies, don't ignore those. Figure out what's going on. Look at your typos. Be really aware. All right, then you're going to end with your thesis. If you need to use my thesis statement and fill in your own blank, I invite you to do that. I also invite you to consider it deeply and really think about what it is you want to say. So use your own, but if you're really, really stuck, use mine. In your actual paragraph, don't put the word thesis. Sometimes students do that for whatever reason. It makes me feel like they haven't actually read the paragraph. So the thesis does go, however, at the end of the introduction. Then for the body of the essay, you're going to start with a topic sentence about the problem for each section of the body. Then you can use your evidence, whether it's from secondary sources or primary sources, in any order you want to. So if you wanted to start by looking at what the early American writer has to say about the problem, and then react to that, and then give something that a contemporary writer has said about the problem, you can do that. So you can use your sources in any order, but for your body paragraphs, you should have direct quotations from the early American writer and from a contemporary writer. So I have the very basics of the body paragraphs written for you here. This is what you should include. Now, if what you have to say from either of the sources is takes up a full half page by the time you have introduced a topic, a problem or an aspect of the problem that you're addressing, and then you've given evidence from a source, and then you've explained or react to that. You may have half a page of a paragraph. If you already have half a page, then you can continue with that same discussion, that same topic, in a second paragraph. So you don't have to write a 5-paragraph essay, but you do have to have 3 sections in the body, because you're addressing what 3 different early American writers would say to help us address a problem that we're having today. Okay, so you can see that I have just copied and pasted. So I have author 1 here. For me, that's Anne Bradstreet. Then I should have author 2. That would have been, who did I put next? John Winthrop. Notice that you would have the same order in your body paragraphs that you mentioned these writers here. So if you wanted to write about 3 writers and you put them in your introductory paragraph one way, and then you decide to write about them in another way, change the order of them in your introductory paragraph. It's much easier than changing the whole body. So then American author number, American author number 1 is still here, and 2 would be next. For me, that would be John Winthrop, and then 3 would be Henry David Thoreau for me. So I will post this little sample for you if you're interested in looking at it more closely, or printing it and using it as a guide as you write your essay. You're welcome to do that. And then a general mention of how conclusions work. You always start your conclusion by restating your thesis in a new way, review the main points, and then reiterate why looking back at the writings of these early American writers is useful for solving this problem. All right, make sure you use direct quotations from your secondary sources, in other words, your current day sources, and from the early American writers. So to make sure that you do the in-text citations correctly, please use the resources that I have posted for you, and I can't seem to bring them up. Maybe if I bring this down. Here we go. It's not coming over to your screen. I'm getting it. So this is posted for you on Blackboard in the module with the research essay details. It's just a reminder how to do your in-text citations. All right, how to do your work cited. Make sure you include the work cited. And be sure to use the tutors. They are free. Send multiple drafts to your tutors. If you just have 1 paragraph, you can send that to a tutor. Make sure they know the goal of the essay. Make sure that you explain to them what your prompt is, and how many sources you're supposed to use, and the format you're supposed to use, because different tutors will be familiar with different formats. And you are to use MLA format. You're to use the literary present tense whenever possible. And you'll be great. I know you will. So let me know if you have any questions. I encourage you to email me or come see me, even better if you're able to do that, or we can set up a virtual meeting if you're never ever on campus.